Okay, it is 7:01. We seem to have almost everyone present, so I think we're going to begin. This is today is Thursday, January 25th, 2024. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Real Property Reuse Committee. It is our first of the new term. We are doing this entirely virtually. We have one item scheduled for discussion. That is item number 36-24, reuse of parcel of land on Grove Street and Hancock Street. This is in Ward 4. Director of Planning and Development submitting on November 3, 2023, a letter stating that the 36,356 square foot city-owned parcel of land known as 169 Grove Street and 136 Hancock Street should be made available for sale or lease pursuant to the City of Newton Ordinances Section 2-7. And before we begin, I am Vicki Danberg, Chairman of the committee. I'm from Ward 6. We have not yet, I don't believe our Ward 1 person is here. That would be Miss John Oliver. Has anyone seen John Oliver on the screen? I do not see him. We have present Councillor Lucas from Ward 2, who is Vice Chairman of the committee, Councillor Maliki from Ward 3, Councillor Gentile from Ward 4, Councillor Getz from Ward 5, Councillor Laredo for Ward 7, and Councillor Lipoff I do not see yet.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, he is here. Okay, so we're just missing one. In addition, joining us tonight, we have Director of Planning Barney Heath. Also, I've seen Lara Kreitzer from Planning, and I believe Shaylin Davis, Ianako. I hope I pronounced that right. We have Cassidy Flynn, our committee clerk, and we have Andrew Lee, who is Deputy City Solicitor. Did I miss anyone? We also have joining us, not on the committee, but very welcome, are from Ward 4, Councillor Randy Block and Councillor Josh Krinsman. And I'm looking to see if anyone else has joined us from other, please raise your hand if I've missed you and you are a councillor, although you're not on the committee. No, I don't see anyone. So I am going to start with Andrew Lee, who is going to give us a short presentation on process on this, and then we will bring it into committee and see where the conversation goes. Go ahead, Andrew, you may start.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Wait a minute, before you start, I see that Councillor Gentile has his hand up. Councillor Gentile? You're muted.
I wanted to make one request before we get started, and that is this. I have not spoken to anybody in the administration about what is being proposed tonight. It may be a good idea. Maybe it should be declared surplus. Maybe there should be a JAPG. But before I'm ready to vote on that, I need to get a lot more information. So I am hoping that, and I'm happy to hear what the administration has to say, but I don't believe the Auburndale Community Association has heard from anybody from the administration. I know Randy Block's been working with PTO from Williams. I think that we need to hear, their thoughts on all of this. So my hope is that, Madam Chair, whatever you think as far as getting information and asking questions and all of that makes sense, but I'm hoping that there is no expectation that we're going to vote on this item tonight. So that's my request.
I don't have any problem with that, Councillor Gentile. I think that it's important that the Ward 4 contingent and the neighborhood groups have an opportunity to hear more information on this. There's no reason, there's no hurry on this, and there's no reason why we need to move forward with anything tonight.
All right, thank you, and I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Okay, good. So let's start with Andrew Lee, who will bring us through the process. Andrew.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. And as I go through the process, Councilor Gentile, you'll probably pick up on basically there's two options for what the city council can do tonight. Technically more, but really if you're looking at 2-7, there are two options. And I think based on what you just said, Councilor Gentile, you know, one of those avenues certainly can be a process by which there's further communication with the community. But let me get to that. So the real property reuse process, just a broad overview, is the process by which the city is available, or is the process that's available for the city to declare real property available for sale or lease. And it sets forth a series of steps that the city has to follow in order for there to be a determination that the property can actually be sold or leased by the mayor. This process is set forth for the most part in this slide. I'm not going to go through everything, but I do want to highlight where we are in the process right now. So the property's already been declared available for lease by the department that has custody and control of it. That was Public Buildings. It's been doctored with the city council. The Director of Planning and Development has submitted a report making the recommendation with regards to whether the property should be made available for lease, or if it should be kept by the city. And now it's been referred to the Real Property Reuse Committee. This is the step in the process we're in right now. And when it is submitted to the Real Property Reuse Committee, the first step for the Real Property Reuse Committee to take is to make an initial determination on whether the city should keep the property, all interest in the property, or make it available for sale or lease. Also, the Real Property Reuse Committee has the discretion to hold a public hearing before making this initial determination. So with regards to the initial determination, I want to make clear, and I've stated it numerous times before the committee, but it always bears repeating, it's a non-binding determination. The purpose of this initial determination is to decide whether or not we're going to the next step of ultimately having a city council vote to authorize the mayor to lease or sell the property. If the initial determination is that the city keeps it, that is the recommendation that goes to the city council. The real property reuse process stops. So if the initial determination is to make the property available for lease, then something called the Joint Advisory Planning Group is formed. The Joint Advisory Planning Group is a nine-member committee with 5 of the members that are being appointed by the president of the city council. 4 members are appointed by the mayor. And the JAPG is charged with working with the planning department to identify whether, in this instance being 169 Grove Street, should be leased, or if the city should keep all the interest in the property and continue to use it as an asset of the city. When the JAPG completes their meetings, they'll actually file a report with the reuse committee with their recommendation. The JAPG has 180 days from the date that they're formed in order to submit this report to the Real Property Reuse Committee. Once the Reuse Committee has the JAPG report, they have to hold a public hearing within 30 to 60 days. This public hearing is not discretionary. Under the ordinances, it has to be held. And the purpose of the hearing, as with most public hearings, is to hear the views of the public and make sure that you're hearing what the public has to say about the future use of the property. And notice is required to abutters. I should have also mentioned that today's meeting, which potentially you could make the initial determination, notice was also given to the abutters. And the last step for the reuse committee after the public hearing is completed is to vote on the recommendation of the city council. And the recommendation, the meat of it is that the reuse committee has to set the minimum sale price and then the use of the property. They can also, by resolution, make recommendations to the mayor with regards to things like design, parking, whatever the committee believes would be good things to keep in mind when the mayor is leasing the property. After that, it goes to the full city council. The full city council has to vote within 60 days that they receive the recommendation from the reuse committee. And the resolution, again, authorizes the mayor to lease the property and also set the minimum financial terms, and of course, also adopt the resolutions that the reuse committee recommends to the full council. So summary of the potential actions tonight is you can make an initial determination, and again, this will automatically begin the process of creating the JAPG. Or you could determine to hold a public hearing before making that initial determination. Of course, the review committee could do neither and just hold the item. But those are basically the different actions that the review committee can take tonight.
Okay, I think that has given us a good basic overview. But before we go on, I'd like to open it to the committee to see if there are any comments or questions for Mr. Lee. Raise your yellow hand if you have any questions. Seeing none? Yes.
You have
Counselor-
two,
Counselor
Madam
Getz.
Chair. You have Ms. Tariq Lucas and Irena Getz.
And then Counselor Lucas is next after. Go ahead, Counselor Getz.
Yeah, sorry, I did
And
want to.
then Malky, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm a little confused here, only because I've been looking at deeds and I've been looking at,
What can I do for you?
uh-oh, sorry. Something is talking, a pod's talking in here. Who is in ownership of the Walker Center? I assume it's the city of Newton.
That's correct.
Because, yeah, okay, so because I was looking at the plan and, today when I was looking, I went around and I was looking at the buildings today with a few other counselors, and there was a little bit of confusion of which parcels belong to whom. And in, just looking up the deeds and then the actual, plan, it all belongs. It was the ARPA dollars, the 2.45 million that then became the taking. So is
Counselor Getz, thank you for your question. I see Barney Heath's hand up and he may have a comment on that. Mr. Heath?
Yeah, I think there has been some confusion around that. I'm happy to share with you a map of the property just to get that piece squared away, if that's okay with
Yes,
the committee.
go ahead.
I was just going to make a quick recommendation,
Andrew.
Madam Chair. And I understand your question, Councilor Getz, but if Councilor Lucas has perhaps a process question, because that's mostly what I was focused on, because I understand planning is going to give a presentation that may answer some of these questions with regards to the property itself. So if we can get the process questions out of the way.
Fine, let's do the process questions first. And if we will just, Counselor Getz, hang on to that and go ahead, Counselor Lucas, with your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Process question. So if the committee votes in the affirmative to create a JPEG tonight, does that have to go before the full council, or does it go from here to the JPEG?
No, it's an initial determination. The full council, though, does have to approve the appointees of the JAPG.
Okay, but for tonight, it goes straight to the. So if we vote to create the JPEG, the full council has to approve the 9 members.
So the reuse committee can vote to make an initial determination to make the property available for lease. By operation of City Ordinance 2-7, that will create the process to start the JAPG. And then just as you said, Councilor Lucas, what that means is that once the mayor and the city council president select their appointees, then the city council's role will be to confirm those appointees.
Okay. And this is going to be for housing, particularly, I think, all affordable housing. If the committee feels as though that's not the right use for the site, could the committee make a recommendation to the full council for a different use?
So my understanding is that this was declared surplus in keeping with the continued municipal use for which it was acquired, which was for school purposes and for affordable housing. That's the exact words in the order of taking. So again, my understanding is that there has been a portion that's been carved out for school purposes. The remaining portion that's the subject of this reuse process is being recommended for affordable housing. I believe that the declaration of surplus was conditioned on continued municipal use as affordable housing.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's a process. So the land that the city owns, only a portion of it is being surplus and the remaining portion is going to stay with the school department?
With public buildings for the use of the school department.
Public buildings, okay, all right.
And
we'll
and I
go-
think the map will help with that.
Okay, well,
Understand.
I'll let someone else go, but I'll look forward to the presentation by Director Heath. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Lucas. Counselor Maliki.
Thank you. As the chair and vice chair know, I was very confused by the sort of lack of clarity of that diagram we got. I think we could have gotten a lot better information to start out with, but also the fact that the property line had changed in the process of our taking, I guess it was 2 years ago, and that's reflected in the assessor's database, I believe is the correct sort of plot area. But the pictures that go with the assessor's database for the address, the 169 Grove and the Hancock address don't match reality. And I think for the benefit of the public who are going to be following both this and the other special permit application that's in, I guess, with land use, I think we ought to make sure that we have accurate information on the city website so people know what we're talking about. And I hope that, I guess, the report of this meeting will have kind of a much better map of what was, I guess, is going to be proposed about possible division of the 169 parcel between retention for the city and possible lease. Thanks.
Good. Is that all, Counselor Maliki? Are you
For
finished?
now, for
Okay.
now.
All right. Very good. Thank you. We have heard from Ward 4, Counselor Gentile, and I see that we've got both Counselor Krinsman and Counselor Block here. I first want to make sure that I've asked them if they have any comments or questions that they'd like to have answered. Counselor Krinsman.
Well, I appreciate that, Councilor Danberg. At the moment, no, I'm interested to hear the presentation from Director Heath, and then I think, I'll probably want to weigh in on the process and the options before the committee, but I'm happy to wait until then.
Fine. Counselor Block.
Thanks, Chair Danberg, for the prompt. I am very interested in the presentation. I also just want to underscore what Counselor Gentile said about the need for community organizations and for the Williams School community to have a chance to consider various ideas that are being proposed. I think everybody will be thinking about this property within the scope of the taking, that is school or housing use, and therein may lie the challenge that we face, how much of one and how much of the other. But I'm looking forward to the presentation and forward to the committee's discussion.
Fine. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to ask a question or make a comment from within the committee? Hearing none. Mr. Heath.
Yes.
I'm going to call on you you mentioned that you have a map that you'd like to show us. And then perhaps if you have any other pieces of information that you can give us, you can introduce anyone that you would like to have speak from the planning department and give us what information you can.
Great, sure. I'm going to ask Shaylin to share the screen. We have a brief presentation that hopefully clarifies some things. And I know Councilor Laredo and Councilor Lucas are familiar with the special permit that was granted for the other portion of the property And I know there's some confusion around that, so happy to respond to that as well. So what you're seeing on the screen here is the portion of the property that was formerly one property that was acquired by the city. And a part of the confusion, Councillor Maliki, is the addresses, I think, because previously it may have been one address. Now it's two addresses. There's frontage on Hancock Street and there's frontage on Grove Street. So the city portion of the property that was acquired is the portion within the blue outline. It is adjacent to the Williams Elementary School. So next slide. So this is a slide showing the approximate portion of the site. Josh Morse actually put this together for us that identifies the portion of the area that the city owns that would be reserved for school expansion purposes. It's approximately 10,730 square feet located behind the existing buildings. So in a moment, we have close-ups of the buildings, so you'll see those as well. Next slide. So this is, and Laura, you can help me out here. This is a picture of the building. It's actually appears as one building that's on the Grove Street frontage. That's what you see on the left side of your screen. And the right side of your screen is a picture from the rear of the properties that shows the connection between the two properties. Laura, you want to remind me the names of the properties so I don't get them wrong?
So the green building is 169 Grove Street. I don't think we had a historic name. The other house, the yellow building there, is the Hume House.
Right. I should have mentioned at the top, these properties are in the Auburndale Historic District. I see that Commissioner Shames is on the call, so he's probably well acquainted with this property. Next slide. And this is the single-family property that fronts on Hancock Street. You can see in the rear the other buildings that exist on the site. I think that's it in terms of the presentation. If you want to go back to the first slide for a second, Shaylin. Thank you. So what shows on here is the present constitution of the buildings on the site. Back in December, I'm sorry, bear with me a second. Yeah, December of 2022, a special permit was granted to redevelop the non-city portion, I'm going to call it, property into 20 units of housing, 16 that would be in the larger building, and there would be 4 townhouses that front on Grove Street. That went through both the Auburndale Historic District and also through the city council land use process. So that I know there was some confusion about the two properties, but that's the distinction between the two. So Laura and myself and Shaylin are here to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, is that the end of the presentation?
It is.
Okay, I thank you very much for that. And now let's go back into committee and see if we have any questions or comments from within the committee. Councilor Gentile.
Thank you, Madam
Yes.
Chair. I wanted to just make sure that I understand the map correctly, so Commissioner Director Heath, the blue outlined area, that is the 36,356 square feet. Am I correct there?
That the city acquired, yes.
All right, and we acquired it a couple of years ago, I believe, for $2,450,000. Do I have that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So I want to make sure that my colleagues understand, how much we paid for 36,000 square feet. So it was a lot of money. So that's one of the reservations I have about declaring this surplus too early in the property. So then, as I read and as you mentioned, it's this 36,000 square foot area has been further subdivided, or at least potentially subdivided, into a lot where there's 10,730 square feet that would be available to the Williams School for possible expansion, whether it's the building or the playground or whatever. Do I have that right?
That's right, from Commissioner Morse. That's correct.
All right. So then that leaves us with somewhere in the vicinity of 26,000 square feet. So are we being asked to make the 26,000 square feet available for sale or lease? Or are we being asked to, and hold on to the 10,000 square feet for the school? Or are we being asked to declare the entire 36,000 square feet for sale or lease?
So it's the former, but I'll defer to Attorney Lee. But my understanding is that the lease portion of the property would be the portion that would be declared potentially for affordable housing use, and the city would retain the portion that would go along with the school expansion. I think we'd kind of have to work out the details as to where that line would be, but that's my understanding. Is that correct, Attorney Lee?
So Commissioner Morse made it very clear in his letter declaring the surplus that roughly 10,000 square feet of the lawn area adjacent to the Williams Elementary School would remain in the custody and control of the Public Buildings Department for the same purpose, same use, which is for school purposes. So the way I interpret that to me is that really the only thing that's being declared surplus is the remainder of the lot that's going to be declared surplus, as Director Heath had just mentioned in his presentation.
Well, Andrew, I appreciate that, because I think it's important that that we're all clear on that, because the docket item talks about, declaring the entire 36,000 square feet for possible sale or lease. So at the very least, if we're really separating, if the recommendation from the administration is to separate this into a 10,000 square foot lot and a 20,000 square foot lot, I think we need to make that clear. That's all. And again, the other confusion is, and again, I think it's important for the folks that are representing the administration to just make it clear. This has absolutely nothing to do with Civico, correct?
That's correct.
They're the ones that received the special permit for the project, Bonnie, that you just described,
Right.
the 20 units.
Right.
But what we're being asked for tonight has absolutely nothing to do with Civico. I know that they are interested in making a cash contribution, I think, as opposed to, developing a couple of affordable units on site. But that's totally unrelated to this, right?
That is, I think that's a pending application that will be heard. I think I'm right, on February 6th at Land Use Committee.
Okay.
For an
All right.
amendment-
I just
for an
wanted to
amendment.
make sure I had
Right.
those things straight.
Yep.
And Mr. Heath, just for clarity, the previous Civico special permit that we're talking about was for the entire 36,000 square feet?
No.
No, it's for the, on that map, it's for the non-city,
I said it's
parcel,
26.
the one closest to Grove Street. I don't have the square footage on that, but I could find that out for you.
Okay, yes,
Yep.
that would be helpful.
Sure.
Okay, next is, Mr.
Madam Chair, it's
Yes.
a good question, and just so people aren't confused, the answer to your question, I think, Bonnie, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Is that the Civico site is everything outside of the blue square, the blue area that Bonnie put up on the first.
That's correct. It's 58,492 square feet.
All right, thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. It's important, I think, that everybody understand that, that piece of information. Counselor Lucas, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just, help me start with this. Is there to Director Heath, is there a project webpage for the Walker Center, for this real property reuse process?
Laura, do we have a web page set up where we've put anything up on this yet?
Not yet. We really haven't started anything yet, but that's something that we will do as this project moves forward.
Okay, well, that's good. I am not a web designer, and I'm not doing any of that tonight. But just to going back to what Councilor Gentile said, it will be helpful when you have the map of the site, Hancock and Grove Street.
Right.
And the Williams School, I guess you could put that in there, but identify the 3 parcels that I referenced earlier and make it clear so that people know you have about 20,000 for this reuse process, 10,000 for the potential school expansion, be controlled by Commissioner Morse, and I think he said, Councilor Gentile said like 50,000 square feet, which is, I consider it private property by Civico Development. Just so that when we're looking at it, we know exactly where the boundary lines and what buildings currently exist in them, so there's no, so we are clear as to what we are looking at. The other thing, it's if this is going to be used for affordable housing, and we're in a historic district, I'm thinking right now, and do we have any affordable housing developments, 100% affordable housing developments in Newton that are in historic districts?
I
Mr.
can
Heath,
think
can you
of,
help us with that question, or Mr. Lee?
Laura might have a take on that.
I'm
seeing
sorry,
as-
yeah, I know there's one on Elliott Street that is, I'm not sure anymore if that's 100% affordable, but that was a home buyer unit that Can Do put together. There's a number of historic buildings
Yes,
that are just outside of historic districts.
there's
I know
one
there's
on, go ahead.
There's another one on Chestnut Street. There's one on Auburn Street in Auburndale.
That was a more recent one, yes.
Right.
236 Auburn Street.
Okay, but was that one created before basically what I'm getting at, has an affordable housing development, 100%, been created in the historic district when the historic district was active? I don't know if the one on Ash Street was,
The Elliott Street one it did go through review with the Upper Falls Historic Districts Commission
the
when it was
one
developed.
on Elliott Street. I'm not familiar with.
It's by the church, and I apologize, I don't remember the cross
Okay.
street.
I think it's that Greek Revival House, Laura.
Right, the Greek Revival, it's white, yeah.
Okay, and but that building was already standing before okay, let me try
Right,
this.
so they did an addition to it with some, I think, townhouse style units at the back, but then they divided up the house and they did changes to the historic building as well.
Okay, but this would be the first I would consider new construction for an affordable housing development in a historic district.
I think because it's in a historic district, we'd be leaning towards using the houses that are there and maybe possibly looking at the possibilities of how we could alter them or expand them to provide
Okay.
more housing.
Okay,
But I think
Well,
there's
yeah.
assumption that we are working with the district commission. It's better to start with what we have.
That's exactly, that's the working assumption we're starting with.
Okay.
Can-Do did that in Upper Falls. They took a historic home, they added on to it with new construction
Okay.
and rehab the historic piece.
Okay, I'll certainly do a site visit to the one in Upper Falls. So yeah, so I'm just thinking down the road right now about well, you did it in Upper Falls, but the economic viability of 100% affordable housing in a historic district. That's all. I'm just putting that out there. But I guess it worked in Upper Falls, so who knows? Maybe it could work here. That's all I have for now. Thank you, Madam
That it?
Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. Councilor Getz, I didn't mean to skip over you. You're next, then Councilor Malachy, and then Councilor Laredo, President Laredo. Go ahead,
Okay.
Councilor Getz.
I have two questions. I'm still, I'm sorry to be confused about exactly what, land we're speaking about. I'm looking at two different maps now. And I don't know if Director Heath, you could actually go back to the map that
Yeah.
had the red outline of the land that Josh Morse was wanting to keep in hold.
Yep.
Then, just literally use your little cursor and just please point to where we're talking about.
Yeah, so I don't have control of the cursor, but you can see the outline of unfortunately, you got the lots on here, and that's making it even more confusing. The red.
No. Are you actually doing the movement right now?
No,
That little.
Shaylin is. Shaylin
Oh, okay,
is.
super.
So the
super.
red,
So the red is, yeah. As I understand, the red is the countryside. A
Yep.
lot.
Yep.
Okay, so now let's go to the rest
So,
of
can
the
I
designated.
one other way you might be able to figure this out.
Yep.
Lots 1, 2, and 3 are part of the Civico development. Lots A and B are the city's property.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about. We're
Yep.
talking about just the residual over on Hancock.
Yep.
Okay.
And that portion on Grove that you'll see, I think it's lot B, a portion of which, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so so she's talking about like further down. Okay. Okay. All right. That's incredibly helpful. Thank you. All right. And then the other question, it's just a sort of general question. Since these parcels were acquired with ARPA dollars, what is the status of the land? It's, if in fact it goes forward and it goes through the reuse process, will it be like Austin Street where it's actually the city in ownership and then it's leased?
Yes, it's a good question. Attorney Lee and I were speaking about that earlier today. I think the nature of the funds, the ARPA funds, and the expectation all along was the city would retain the property for school expansion and affordable housing purposes, both of which are consistent with the use of ARPA funds.
So Councilor Getz, just to piggyback off of Director Heath, the intent is to lease the property, but the city will continue to own it in fee.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, is that it, Councilor Getz? Good, Councilor Malachy.
Thank you. Mr. Heath, could you put the map back up again?
Sure. Actually, Shaylin will.
Okay.
Thanks, Shaylin. Yep. Which one would you like?
That one, yeah.
Okay.
Can you make that sort of bigger part of the screen? Let me see if I can do it myself. I don't know. Speaker, will that make it bigger? No, that's not working.
No, Shaylin's making it bigger now.
Oh, okay. All right. And let me sort of make it bigger on my own view. Standard. Okay. So I'm trying to look at the first of all, what are all those dashed purple lines that seem to subdivide both the Civico property and the 169 property. Maybe they're all within the Civico property, so it's just, okay, so we've got a that purple line within the red, I don't know what to call it, not a trapezoid, but is that some kind of division between the
Director, Heath, I'll
property-
jump in here. I
ahead.
believe that this plan, because I've seen this plan before, but I saw it 2 years ago. It was just a concept plan, and I think that the planning department used it simply because it was probably the best one they had that had an aerial view of the
That's
building
correct.
and showed at least the boundary line. So with regards to any of the lines that you see between lots 1, 2, and 3, they're immaterial. And the line that you see between lot A and lot B, that is also immaterial. They're not actual existing lines on any recorded plan.
And it's the line between lot A and lot 1 and between lot 3 and lot B also immaterial, because they don't match up to what's on the assessor's database.
I believe they should match up what's on the assessor's database, because give me just 1 second.
Well, they don't.
Perhaps not exactly. And the reason I say give me 1 second is because I was looking at the actual taking plan
Mhm.
that split lots A and B from lots 1, 2, and 3. So this might not be exactly what the recorded plan is, but for the most part, the meets and bounds are accurate. So I think this is a fair representation of what the city owns, which is lot A and lot B. And the recorded plan, just again, I know I'm saying what I said before, but just to emphasize the point, lots 1, 2, and 3 are a single parcel now that's owned by Civico. Lots A and B are a single parcel now that's owned by the city.
Right, so this, what we're looking at here with the purple lines, that predates the taking plan.
I believe so. But I think it's still representative again of what the city
So
owns.
why did, in our package, why did we not get the actual taking plan?
I don't know, but I believe I sent it to the clerk's office earlier today or yesterday, so I'm sure that Cassie will be sharing it with you.
Okay, sorry, is Josh Morse on the meeting or not?
I don't see Josh Morse now.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious, if only the portion in red were retained for Williams School future use, what are the possible uses that could be put to, given that it's sort of like landlocked? It doesn't have street access.
So,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Andrew, if you've got a thought on that.
Well, I just wanted to make clear, it's not really landlocked, because if you look on the other sides of Lot B where the school is, as well as here, exactly where Shaylin is circling, those are all owned by the city.
Right. But you wouldn't be driving cars into that area of red. It would be more likely to be used for parkland play area.
I would have to defer to Commissioner Morse with regards to what the school's plans are for that particular, approximate space.
Okay.
The school may not have a plan yet.
Mm-hmm. And has anyone talked to Mark Welch about the trees? Because whether we were to lease a portion or keep it all, there's a lot of, pretty good sized trees. Some could certainly use some pruning, but it's a nice lot of tree canopy, and it would be good to have those sort of, pruned for the health of the trees. Rather than,
Yeah, I think that's premature at this point. But certainly a point well taken.
okay. Okay, thank you.
President Laredo?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to piggyback for a moment on questions by a couple of my colleagues. I want to make sure I too understand everything clearly. So this entire parcel of land was purchased for about $2.6 million by the mayor using ARPA funds, which means we had no say. Is that right, Director Heath?
2.4, that's correct.
Okay, ARPA money. And I know
Yes.
ARPA money under the broad definitions of the use of ARPA can be used for virtually anything. The Civico project is completely separate, correct?
Mhm.
They are going to be coming in for an amendment to their special permit because apparently they're not going to be able to build the affordable housing that they thought they were going to build. Is that also correct, Director Heath?
I think that's my understanding of their petition, yes.
And what conversations, if any, have you had with the school department, Director Heath, regarding the potential to use all of this land for the Williams School, not just in the immediate future, but further down the road?
I've had none. That's Commissioner Morse's purview.
So why should we be in such a hurry to declare this surplus without even having some idea as to whether our school system might want to use this land?
Again, I'll defer to Commissioner Morse, who I rely on in terms of what the school expansion needs are and conversations with school officials, which I'm certain that he's had about
Well,
this parcel.
You know, if this is, and you're talking to Director Heath about a lease, not a sale of real estate, correct?
Correct.
So what, a 100-year lease, maybe?
I don't know.
99-year lease? Mr.
Haven't
Lee?
settled on that. We have a existing project at the West Newton Armory for affordable housing where the city is also retaining the property.
And is your plan to retain a for-profit developer to do this work?
Haven't got to that stage.
Would that be relevant to your decision-making?
I can't comment on that at this point. I don't want to get ahead of the committee or myself on this one.
Well, but it does matter to me about what we're doing with this parcel of land as to what the intent of the administration is here. So are you saying the administration hasn't even given that any thought?
Nope. I think the intent of the administration was to use these structures for affordable housing purposes.
And to piggyback on what Councilor Maliki asked you a few minutes ago, how does the administration at least preliminarily envision egress and access to the site?
I think that's something we'd want to work through with the JAPG committee and then work with the reuse committee on.
Would that involve reuse of other portions of land if we had to pave over it?
Not sure I follow you there.
Well, there's adjacent city land, right?
Yes, there's a park next door and the school is next door, correct?
And so what is at least the preliminary vision for how you would access this parcel, which is otherwise landlocked from the street?
So there's a driveway on Hancock Street if we pulled up the map again.
That'd be helpful. I'm just trying to understand
Yep.
understand the facts here, that's all.
Yeah, there's existing access to the property right there where Shaylin is showing there's a driveway there.
And that's land that we own as well?
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the property that we own. Yep. That's the lot A and lot B.
Even though that's not outlined in the red.
The red is the school expansion portion that Commissioner Morse has identified.
So it's the remainder of Lot A, which with the building on it that would access from Hancock.
Correct.
Okay, and that's it.
And also the remainder of lot B that you see there on Grove Street.
And that would access Grove Street from putting some kind of driveway into the property?
Haven't settled on that idea yet, how one would access the property, where the parking would be, et cetera, to for the
Well,
occupant. Go ahead,
You have a
sorry.
you have a school right next door, and
Yep.
you have Lot B, which could be used for a school expansion. So isn't that something we need to be thinking about before we
Absolutely.
make decisions?
Absolutely.
Okay, but when is that going to be done in the decision-making process?
As part of the JAPG process, I think we would explore options for the site.
Would you envision options for the site as part of the JPAG process to include using this additional area for school uses?
Probably not. We probably would work with Commissioner Morse on different scenarios that would reserve this portion of the site for future school expansion.
So forgive me, but if we're really gonna do a true exploration of everything, why aren't we looking at possible school uses too? It sounds like we're prejudging what we're gonna do.
I think the intent all along was for affordable housing and school expansion purposes.
Well, the administration made a decision to acquire the property. We did not. So now we're being asked to consider possible uses, and I just want to make sure that we're in this process casting a broad net. It may be that school use is entirely inappropriate here. I don't know. But I am concerned that we would not be considering it as part of the process. I'm all set for the moment. Thank you very much. Appreciate the clarification.
Madam Chair,
you.
can I respond just two
Yes,
things?
go
that
ahead,
Councilor Rado
Counselor
said?
Lee, and then Counselor Gentile, Andrew Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Attorney Lee.
So the first thing I'd like to note that you're absolutely correct, President Laredo. The appropriation piece of the taking wasn't approved by City Council because ARPA monies were used. However, the taking itself was approved by the City Council. So there was at least that City Council action with regards to the acquisition. And I'm just going to parrot what Director Heath said with regards to the JAPG process and reiterate what the first step for the reuse committee, if they decide to take it, is an initial determination. It is non-binding. It is not a recommendation that the property be made available for lease. All it does is it starts that process for the JPG to do exactly what you are putting your finger on, Councilor Laredo, or President Laredo, to look at the property, look at, is this feasible? I think the Armory is probably the one in most recent history that would be helpful to kind of look at in terms of what the process could potentially look like for this property, because the same thing was done there, right? The JPG really dug in to look at the feasibility of that site as affordable housing, and not just a yes or no, can it be used, but how? How could that be accomplished with all of these different models of where the parking could be and all of that? And I think that the same process will likely be required here. That's all I wanted to state.
Madam Chair, can I
Okay.
just respond briefly? Attorney Lee, I very much appreciate that clarification. It's extraordinarily helpful. My only point here is, as part of the JP, I'll get the initials wrong.
JAPG.
Thank you, Chair Danberg. All I'm suggesting is we keep a very open mind, consider school uses as part of that, and not foreclose that, even though that may be what the administration wants to do. That's not our job. And I think we have to have a broad perspective. And I'd want to hear from others besides Commissioner Morse, despite my tremendous respect for him, but I'd want to hear directly from the school folks as to what they think their needs are. And I think they should be at the table and heard directly. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go to Counselor Gentile and then Lucas, a question that I would bring up that I think would be of general interest is whether when in this process there is time for, and it's appropriate to have, public input and neighborhood input. Can you speak to that, Attorney Lee?
I can only speak to it with regards to the process set forth in 2-7. It makes it clear that the reuse committee has discretion to hold a public hearing prior to the initial determination. I believe that was done for the Armory. It was done for a couple other properties that went through the reuse process. There is a requirement that a public hearing be held after the JAPG submits their report to the reuse committee. But that's, of course, much farther down the line.
Okay, thank you for that. Counselor Gentile.
So two things, in response to one of the questions that President Laredo asked about leasing the site. Again, it's not, the potential is not just for leasing. The docket item talks about sale or lease. And I want to make sure everybody is aware of that, because I'm concerned about the sale of a property that we just spent $2,450,000 on it, you know, without a full vetting of it. And I think the point that Andrew just made is, and I would encourage this, before we take any action, that this committee would have a public hearing to get feedback from the school community and different community groups as to what their thoughts are. I think that would be helpful to us as we try to address the, you know, the item that's in front of us. And again, it states in the docket item, maybe it's a mistake, but it doesn't just talk about leasing the land, it talks about a possible sale or lease.
Is that it, Counselor Gentile? Finished?
Yes, for now, yes, thank
Oh,
you.
okay. Counselor Gentile, in the comment that I would make in as an adjunct to what you've just brought up is that in my recollection and understanding of the way this process goes, sale or lease has always been kind of a catchphrase that's used for every piece of property that I remember having ever gone through real property reuse. So if there is no will or desire to sell this property, and I can certainly understand your point at not acquiring it and then putting it up for sale, that does not have to be something that is done. What we, the committee, and the city will make that determination if it's to be a lease. And I think that the comments that I've heard up until now from Attorney Lee have been that the thought is to retain the land at any rate for all of these pieces of property, but that the JAPG will make its recommendation. That now it's a recommendation. We do not need to follow what the JPG says, but they will take a look at this when the time is appropriate for us to convene the JAPG.
I agree with you, Madam Chair, but I'm just want to make sure I'm pointing out that in response to one of the questions that Councilor Laredo asked, it was mentioned that we were leasing the land, and that decision hasn't been made. It could either be sold. The current language talks about making the property available for sale or lease.
That's correct.
So
Yes.
so you know that both options are on the table. I just want to make sure everybody knows that. That's all.
Madam Chair, could I just briefly
Yes, go ahead.
comment on that? I completely understand what you're saying, Councilor Gentile. I think Councilor Danberg did a really good job kind of explaining why that language was used. I will talk to Commissioner Morris to make sure that if any corrective language is required with regards to the declaration that will be submitted. One factor that I think should also just be remembered if you're talking about sale is this was acquired with ARPA monies. Admittedly, I don't know what hoops would have to be jumped through and what exactly it means to sell a property that was acquired 2 years ago with ARPA monies. I'm assuming that it probably hasn't really even happened yet. But I just like to point that out, that the idea of selling it seems, I don't think it is as straightforward as another property that the city simply owned, considering the source of the funds to acquire it. Just wanted to make that note.
Thank you, Councilor Lee. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me speak again. Yeah, the sale or lease, I had a question on that. That's been answered. And the portion in red that we see there, that's going to be for the school department, or excuse me, public buildings department, and the school department can use it. If we vote to form a JPEG tonight, will the JPEG be looking at only the 26,000 square feet, lots A and B, or will they be looking at the 26,000 square feet plus the portion in red?
Councilor Lee.
I believe they would not be looking at the portion in red, but keep in mind that portion in red is somewhat approximate. And then with regards to the other portions, I think it's important for the reuse committee to remember that the reuse committee has the ability to make the recommendation that any portion that's declared surplus be sent back to the agency that declared it surplus, here being public buildings, for continued municipal use. The reason I'm making that statement is it's not an all or nothing situation where the reuse committee has to make a recommendation that the entire property that was considered surplus has to be for lease. They can take those portions that are declared surplus, the portions lot A and B that are outside of the red, and then make a determination that some of it should be used for affordable housing, some of it should be sent back to public buildings for school purposes. I hope that's helpful.
Sorry. So they are not looking at the portion in red.
That's correct.
Okay, so how do we, the committee, actually know if the portion in red is going to be enough land for any school expansion?
That'd be a question for Commissioner Morse.
Exactly.
Okay, so I don't know if it was Counselor Gentile who said it, but I would like to hear from Commissioner Morse. I want to hear from the school department through Commissioner Morse if that approximate 10,000 square feet in red is enough land for their potential expansion before we go forward to putting housing on the remainder of the lot. That's where I'm at right now.
Good. Thank you. Counselor Gentile, then Laredo, then Malachi.
So my good friend Council Lucas is making me nervous every time he mentions forming a JAPG tonight. So, because Tariq, we can talk about this offline, but you lose a lot of control once you set up the JAPG. The ball starts rolling and, you lose a lot of of control over what ends up being done. That's what I have witnessed. Now, I'm going to move that we hold the item, as I had said earlier this evening. But if the chair and the rest of the committee thinks that it would be helpful, and I think it probably would be helpful, I would say that the next step in the process would just be to have a public hearing next month or the month after, so that we can hear directly from the school community and the neighborhood and the neighborhood associations to see what their thoughts are before we decide if we want to declare it surplus and set up a JAPG. So I'm moving that we hold the item with the thought of setting up a public hearing before, as the next step.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Gentile. Do we have any comments from either Counselors Laredo, Malachi, or Krinsman on the motion to hold?
I do, Madam Chair.
Yep, then go ahead, Counselor.
So I fully agree with what Counselor Gentile said. I think a public hearing is quite appropriate. I do think we want Commissioner Morse here, but I do not want to hear the school department provide its information through the commissioner. I think we should have the appropriate representatives of the school department here directly. We should also make sure that the Williams School community has provided sufficient notice of this. I don't know how that's done. That's not typically done in some kind of land process, but we need to get that out there. Maybe through the committee clerk, at least the PTO and the school administration at the school, and then the school administration more generally. I think that will make for a much more holistic, thoughtful decision, but otherwise I fully support Councilor Gentile's motion to hold. Thank you.
Thank you, President Laredo. Go ahead, Counselor Malachi, then Krinsman. You're muted. Unmute, please.
I'm sorry. Before I forget, I thought it would be useful to have the boundary line between the city's property and the Civico property marked with, little orange stakes or whatever you can do there. But mainly I wanted to say I strongly support the comments of both Councilors Gentile and Laredo, and I also want to hear from the school department, Anna Nolan directly when she's a little less busy and when everyone's calmed down from after what will hopefully be a settlement soon on the contract, and have the public hearing at a time when people are going to be able to make it, not in the middle of, April vacation, if there is one, or so forth. And just would observe that leasing might sound better than selling, but with the potential use being for the Williams School, I have to think that if the Williams School needs more land, and it sounds like they already need more land now, whatever needs they're going to have are going to occur in a lot sooner than 100 years, which would be probably the term you'd be thinking of for something with housing. So thank you.
Counselor, let's hear from Attorney Lee and then Counselor Krinsman.
Madam Chair, thank you for indulging me. I've been raising my hand more often than I plan to tonight, but I just want to be clear on the motion. Is it to hold and set a public hearing, or is it to hold and then have a subsequent meeting to set the public hearing? And the reason that I'm trying to make that distinction is under the city council rules, any public hearing, the time and date has to be approved by the full city council. The way that's done is through the report of the reuse committee. So I want to make sure that everyone is accomplishing what they're intending to.
Counselor Gentile, why don't you answer that question, and then we'll move to.
Well, clearly, my initial motion was to hold it so we don't go voting on a JAPG tonight and declaring the land surplus. But I also think that the next step in the process should be a public hearing.
Okay, so would you like to amend your motion to include a public hearing?
Well, I thought I did, but how do you want the motion made, Andrew?
Just vote to set a public hearing date.
Oh, all right. I would again make the motion to hold the item tonight, and in addition, set a public hearing. I mean, whatever the chair thinks, but maybe it makes sense to do it at our regularly scheduled meeting in March. I think our regularly scheduled meeting in February will probably conflict with school vacation. So that's why I'm suggesting March, but whatever people think makes sense.
Do we have a date? Does anyone have a calendar in front of them?
Well, isn't it always the fourth Thursday, reuse?
It is, yes. Fourth Thursday, yes.
Whatever the fourth Thursday is in March.
All right.
It was the 28th, Madam Chair.
28th, and does that conflict? I don't think that conflicts with
It doesn't conflict, and we don't even know if there'll be a February vacation. So
and Chair, it's the 22nd in February, fourth Thursday. And that's the same week as President's Day weekend, as Councilor Krinsman is saying, so that could potentially be a school vacation.
That is school vacation week,
Okay.
22nd.
All right.
I would suggest March.
All right. Counselor Krinsman.
thank you, Madam Chair. I was glad to hear Councilor Gentile make that motion, because I was also going to suggest that the next step ought to be a public hearing. But my question, I appreciate that Attorney Lee went through the process at the beginning, process that I'm not intimately familiar with, so I was trying to pay close attention. And I know that there were components of the process where sort of, there were fork in the road, go down this road, go down that road, but there were also some, it sounded like some 60-day, 90-day clocks that began to tick at certain points. I just want to make sure that we're not triggering one of those by setting the public hearing. And if we do the public hearing, does that trigger any sort of clock?
Does not.
Okay, so the only thing that would trigger the need to act within, say, 60 or 90 days is the establishment of the JAPG or the recommendation by the JAPG?
The latter. Once the reuse committee receives the recommendation of the JAPG, they have to hold a public hearing within 30 to 60 days.
Okay, then excellent, thank you, appreciate that. I do think the appropriate next step is the public hearing. And I agree with Councilor Laredo that it would be great to hear directly from the school department. I've certainly worked with members of the school department. I've worked with now 2 commissioners of Parks, Rec, and Culture to try and get that field over at Williams fixed up. And anyone who's been over there knows how terrible it is. So this feels to me like a component that could help that. So I would like to hear from them about the future use as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good. Thank you, Councilor Krinsman. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. The motion is to hold this item and to schedule a public hearing at our regularly scheduled meeting in March, which would be the 4th, the 20, did I hear the 22nd of March?
28th,
28th.
Madam.
28th of
Madam
March.
Chair.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the motion carries unanimously. So now, Counselor Lee, what is the next move for us at this point? We have a public hearing scheduled. That will be in March. That would probably be our next meeting. I don't see any reason why we would meet prior to that public hearing. Is that your understanding?
It's at the discretion of the reuse committee, but in terms of the 2-7 process, there's nothing to do. There's no steps laid out until after the public hearing. And then after that, again, the reuse committee, again, has the same options they do tonight. They can make an initial determination, hold the item. There's no mandate.
Okay, and
what it is.
one other question that I think would be good to clear up. Normally, after the JAPG makes its recommendation, we have to schedule a public hearing. So do we need a second public hearing after the JAPG presumably will do its work? Given 180 days, they don't usually take that amount of time. But do we need a second public hearing?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you, everybody.
Night.
Good evening.
Night.
Thank you.
And we will convene in March.